Looking to the past to understand the present. Episode 8, Difference Between Africa and the Americas, hosted by Tristan Paul. Welcome to Looking to the Past to Understand the Present. I'm your host, Professor Tristan Paul, and today we're here with our guest. He prefers to stay anonymous but goes by History Buff 1998. Thanks, Tristan. Happy to be here. I love history and discussing it. Me too. Happy to have you. Now, today we're discussing Africa and the Americas, particularly Axum Empire and the Mayan Empire. Axum, that ancient empire in Africa, right? Actually, it still exists, but only as a city in Ethiopia. So, like Rome, then? You got it! I've been looking to these two ancient powerhouses, and I wanted to talk to you about them, comparing the two. Sounds fun. Now, can we start with Axum? I'm already pretty familiar with Maya, so learning something new sounds like a good start. Today, let's describe the Axum Empire. First things first, it was located in the Horn of Africa, which is what is now modern-day Ethiopia and Eritrea. Right, that makes sense. Question for you, though. I heard the kingdom is actually called Kush, and Axum is the major city. Is that true? Good catch, but that's not correct, unfortunately. Axum had actually conquered Kush and made it part of the empire. Okay, that makes sense. Well, tell me more about Axum. Sure thing. Its agriculture is mostly grains from plow-based farming. It has its own writing called Ge'ez and traded with the Indian and Red Ocean. Sounds like a neat nation. How long did it last? About a millennium, give or take, from the 1st to ninth century. One of the most interesting parts of Axum was that it was the first country in Africa to be influenced by Christianity. Wait, really? That's really interesting. Can you elaborate? It started in the 4th century CE due to trade throughout the Red Sea. King Izana was the first ruler to adopt the faith and even changed the country's coins. That's crazy. And Africa has such a strong Christian presence even now. Would you say that's solely because of Axum? Not solely Axum, but Axum's influence was there, as it did conquer a large part of that area of Africa. The empire even had their own church called Coptic. And fun fact, to this day, the area where Axum used to be is still primarily Christian, about 60% if I remember correctly. No fooling? Guess I can't be that surprised. It's still crazy to hear. Glad I decided to come to this podcast to chat. Now it's time to discuss the Mayans. They were located primarily in what is now Guatemala and Yucatan. Their empire lasted quite a while from... If you don't mind, Tristan, I'll take it from here. I've wanted reason to gush about the Mayans for ages. Yeah, okay. Go nuts. Alright, so the Mayans did last quite a while, from 250 to 900 CE. They were well known for their academic achievements. Do go on. I know about the calendar, but that's about it. They used complex calculations using the number zero. They also excelled in astronomy, which they used to create their famous calendar. They also had quite a unique phonetic writing that used pictographs and hieroglyphics to communicate. Very interesting. I didn't know that much. Some host I am. Let me elucidate more on the Mayans. They had an extremely fluid political structure, city-states, local lords, regional kingdoms, and it made it for a fairly chaotic time. Yeah, it sounds pretty chaotic. Can't imagine living in a time like that. Can't you? Okay. Well, we're not here to talk about that. Back on topic, I heard the Mayans were ruled by both kings and queens. Yeah, that's true, but they were mostly called state shamans. But I gotta ask, why did they fall eventually, besides colonization, of course? A few reasons, actually. A long drought in 1840 CE, which caused massive amounts of famine. Another one is overpopulation, as by 600 CE they had roughly 5 million people. Ugh, that sounds rough. Now that we've gotten the basics out the way, it's time for the real discussion. These two kingdoms, far away from each other, geographically, just how similar are they, eh? Now that we discussed both, I think they are quite similar in some ways. After all, they both had advanced writing, Axum having Ge'ez and Mayans having their own hieroglyphics. True, they were around in the same era, roughly, which is incredible to think about. What else? Oh, they both had extensive trade networks established, and which helped spread their culture around and establish new ones. Both empires also fell from grace. They already discussed mines falling apart, but Axum did well for similar reasons. Environmental damage led to starvation. They were conquered, particularly from Islamic neighbors, and were also lost to trade routes. Well, good things can't. Well, I guess all good things can't last forever. A shame, but at least they left us plenty of history. Well, that's it. Now they got the comparisons out the way, let's contrast. These kingdoms have had some similarities, but also very distinct differences. What's the first you can think of? Location, obviously. Africa and Latin America are oceans across from each other. They also had differences in languages. Mine spoke many similar languages, while Axum only spoke one. Is, right? Correct! There's also the fact Axum had a single empire, while Mayans had several city-states that make up their kingdom. Sounds chaotic. Oh, religion. Axum was originally polytheistic, but adopted Christianity, but Mayans stayed polytheistic the whole time, regardless of Spanish attempts to convert. They also had different crops. Axum had things like wheat, oats, linen, while the Mayans had maize, beans, and chili peppers. Funny story. For the longest time, I thought chilies came from India. Well, that's enough. Well, that's everything I want to talk about today. Thanks for stopping by, History Buff 1998. I had a blast. I'd like to stop by again. You're welcome anytime. You're my favorite guest so far. Don't tell the others. I won't, dude. Well, this has been Professor Tristan R. Paul, and you have been tuning in to Looking into the Past to Understand the Present. We'll see you next time. Goodbye.